we put all these labels on stories? This one's a classic. That one's genre fiction. We act like these categories are set in stone. But what if they aren't? What if they're actually alive and changing all the time? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the secret life of stories and see how we really decide what makes a classic.
So to get our heads around this, let's start with a little thought experiment. Just imagine you walk into a huge, modern bookstore today. You're looking for one of the oldest stories in the Western world, Homer's Iliad. Okay, where do you even start looking? I mean, your first instinct is probably the classic literature section, right? Makes sense. Or hey, it's full of gods and goddesses, so maybe mythology? But hang on a second. You've got Achilles, a literal demigod, epic battles, divine intervention. Couldn't you make a serious case for epic fantasy? This one little problem, where to put this one book, actually reveals everything about how we see stories. To solve this puzzle, we've got to rewind. Way back, we need to understand what job the Iliad was originally created to do. See, here's the thing. In ancient Greece, our whole idea of a story just didn't exist. There wasn't this clean line separating fiction from truth. And the idea of writing something just for art's sake, they would have looked at you like you were crazy. Stories had a job to do. A really, really important one. For the Greeks, epics like the Iliad were basically their cultural operating system. It did three absolutely essential things. It was their science class, explaining how the world and the gods worked. It was their social glue, giving them shared heroes and a common set of values. And it was their direct line to understanding the most important truths of their culture. This wasn't just entertainment, it was everything. Okay, so now for the fun part. Let's imagine a modern reboot. What would happen if we took that ancient operating system and tried to publish it for the very first time, today? If some unknown author walked into a publisher's office today with the manuscript for the Iliad, all the gods, the monsters, the epic war, there is no doubt where it would end up. It would be packaged, marketed, and sold as genre fiction. Probably epic fantasy, right next to all the dragon books. So why? The answer is something sociologists call the art system. It's the framework our culture uses to process any creative work. And it's shockingly simple. It runs on a binary code. For any given work, it just asks one question over and over. Is this artistic or is it non-artistic? That's the lens we look through now. A great way to think about this is food. Literary fiction is like fancy hot cuisine. Genre fiction is like a perfect hamburger. The fancy meal is all about novelty. The chef wants to shock you, to break the rules, to create something no one's ever tasted before. Their audience is other chefs, food critics, the system itself. But the hamburger? Its goal is predictability. It wants to master the rules to give you that familiar, satisfying taste you crave. Its audience is the market. It's you and me, wanting a great burger. You can even picture it. Literary novels are like loners at a party. Each one is trying to stand in its own corner, to be as different as possible from everyone else. It's all about creating difference. But genre fiction, that's the cluster of people in the middle of the room having a great time. They want to be close to each other, to be part of the same conversation. Whether that's mystery or sci-fi or fantasy, they create continuity. Okay, so this brings up the big question. If our new modern Iliad lands smack dab in the middle of that genre cluster, is it stuck there forever? Or is there a path for it to one day break away and become one of those literary loners? The answer is yes, it absolutely can. And it happens in two steps. First, it gets published as genre. The system looks at it and says, yep, that's epic fantasy, it follows the rules, it'll sell well. But then, over time, a second step can happen. Recategorization. The conversation shifts. Critics, scholars, and readers start to, re-observe the book. They stop focusing on how it fits the pattern and start noticing its unique style, its deep symbolism. The book doesn't change. The way we look at it does. This whole idea of re-observing a story is the absolute key. Let's really dig into what that means, because it's about to blow the whole thing wide open. And here it is, the big secret. Those hard lines we imagine between genre and literary, they're not real. They aren't natural features of the world. They are just the observations the art system is making about itself. In other words, we're the ones drawing the lines in the sand and then acting surprised that they're there. There's a fancy term for this, second-order observation. but all it means is the system watching itself work. And guess what? You are the system. Every time you say, oh, you have to read this new sci-fi book, or a book club discusses a novel, or a professor adds a book to a syllabus, you are actively building and rebuilding those categories. This isn't happening somewhere else. We're all doing it all the time.
And you can see this process everywhere once you look for it. Frankenstein started out as a pulpy Gothic horror story, but we reobserved it as a profound book about science and what it means to be human. The Lord of the Rings was just fantasy for kids until we reobserved it as this massive, self-aware attempts to build a new mythology. All these books made the leap because we, collectively, decided to see them differently.
So what's the magic ingredient? How does a book make that jump? A work becomes literary when it stops just being in a genre and starts being about the genre. It's not just another detective novel. It's a novel that makes you think about the very idea of a mystery. It becomes aware of its own rules and then does something brilliant with them.
Which brings us right back home to the Iliad. Its incredible centuries-long journey from being a society's instruction manual to becoming a timeless literary classic to our fun little thought experiment as a modern fantasy blockbuster, that whole trip is the ultimate proof. A story's identity isn't in the pages. It's in us. It's determined by how our society chooses to look at it.
So what this really means is that when we pick up any book, from an ancient epic to a brand new paperback, the most important question we can ask isn't the one we always ask. It isn't just, what is this story about? Now, the real question is, how is our culture choosing to see this story right now? And once you start asking that question, trust me, you are never going to look at a bookstore shelf the same way again.